Many people past 40 quietly realize they built their entire sense of confidence on other people's reactions. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just a slow, uncomfortable awareness that a significant number of their choices, what to say, what to agree with, which opinion to share, which one to keep hidden, were quietly filtered through one question. What will they think? Most approval-seeking is not insecurity. It is a survival pattern your mind learned early. And by the time you reach 40, that pattern has become a background process, like software that is always running, draining your battery without you ever opening the app. You likely have a set of thought loops that feel like your own voice. Maybe I should check with them first. What will they think if I say no? I don't want to seem difficult. These thoughts create a sense of careful navigation. They make you feel like you are moving through the world thoughtfully. But if you look closer, you will notice something. You are not actually making decisions. You are managing risks. You may believe you are being considerate, but something deeper may be running the decision. When you seek approval, you are not necessarily looking for praise. You are looking for a signal that the environment is safe, that you have not accidentally triggered a conflict that might lead to rejection. That distinction matters more than it first appears. Done early in your life, perhaps during your career-building years, your early relationships, the period when belonging felt most uncertain, your brain calculated a very logical equation. If people approve of me, I remain safe in the group. If I remain safe in the group, I can continue. This was not weakness. This was intelligent adaptation. The ability to read a room, to adjust your presentation, to prioritize harmony over conflict. These were real skills. They helped you succeed. They helped you fit in. They helped you build a life. Patterns protect before they limit. The problem is not that the pattern existed. The problem is that protection strategies are not designed to be permanent. They are designed to be temporary scaffolding. And at some point, the scaffolding becomes the structure. Here is what the approval loop looks like from the inside. A situation arises. A decision needs to be made. An opinion needs to be expressed. A preference begins to surface. Before that preference reaches the surface, a scan begins. Not loud, not deliberate. A quiet internal calculation. How will this land? And then almost automatically, an adjustment. The preference gets softened. The opinion gets qualified. The sentence gets edited before it is spoken. If the response is warm, approval arrives. And with it, something that feels like relief. Not happiness, not satisfaction, relief. If the response is cold, attention arrives. A low-grade discomfort that lingers longer than it should. Over time, the brain reinforces the loop. Approval equals safety. Adjustment equals approval. Therefore, adjustment equals safety. The cycle does not feel like a cycle while you are inside it. It feels like being thoughtful. It feels like caring about other people. That is not entirely wrong, but there is a hidden cost to constantly being liked. The cost is that you are never actually known. When you always adjust your shape to fit the container of other people's expectations, something in identity slowly shifts. You begin to know what people want from you more precisely than you know what you want for yourself. You can read a room quickly. You can sense disapproval before it is spoken. You can adjust your presentation in real time with very little effort. These are real skills, but they are skills developed entirely in service of external reference points. And after enough time, the internal reference point, the one that asks what you actually think, what you actually prefer, what actually matters to you, becomes quieter, not gone, quieter. As you move deeper into midlife, a specific kind of friction begins to appear. You might feel a sudden sharp irritability when someone asks for a favor, a sense of fatigue at the thought of performing the agreeable version of yourself one more time, a quiet but persistent awareness that something about the arrangement no longer feels sustainable. Most people misread this moment. They interpret the fatigue as bitterness. They interpret the withdrawal as becoming difficult. They interpret the friction as evidence that something has gone wrong. But the fatigue is not a symptom of failure. It is a signal that the pattern has reached its functional limit. Well, what if needing approval is not your personality, but a strategy your mind practiced for decades? After 40, the brain often begins to shift its priorities. The drive to fit in, to remain legible to the group, to earn continued belonging. That drive starts to quiet, and something else begins to surface. A drive toward authenticity, toward internal authorship, toward being who you actually are rather than who the room requires you to be. The conflict you feel is not a failure of character. It is identity evolution. The moment approval stops guiding every decision, identity becomes visible. Human beings are wired for belonging. This is not a flaw. It is accurate biology. Social connection is not separate from survival. For most of human history, rejection from the group was not a metaphor. The mind developed sophisticated systems to monitor social standing, detect disapproval, and adjust behavior accordingly. Approval-seeking at its foundation is one of those systems. In the first half of life, we often build a version of ourselves designed to navigate the world successfully. This version is accommodating. It earns gold stars. It keeps the peace, finds the partner, holds the job. It is skilled at being liked. But in the second half of life, that version becomes a burden. Because maturity introduces a different kind of intelligence, the intelligence that recognizes that belonging and self-erasure are not the same thing. That the people who only connect with the version of you that agrees with them are not actually connected to you. They are connected to the service you provide. Realizing this is uncomfortable, but it is also the beginning of a different kind of clarity. What changes when belonging no longer requires constant approval? Building self-worth after 40 does not require a dramatic overhaul. It does not require confrontation or a sudden declaration of independence. It requires a quiet and a persistent observation of the pattern in action. The first practice is the 5-second gap. When someone asks something of you, notice the immediate impulse to agree, to justify, to smooth things over. Sit in the discomfort of the pause for 5 seconds. You are not looking for the right answer. You are simply noticing the urgency of the urge to please. The second is identifying the relief signal. Start noticing the specific feeling of relief that arrives when someone approves of you. Do not judge it. Simply label it. That is the safety signal. By labeling it, you move it from an unconscious drive to an observed behavior. Observation alone changes the relationship. The third is practicing small preferences. Express a small, inconsequential preference without explaining why. I would prefer the other restaurant. I do not really enjoy that film. Watch your mind attempt to construct a 3-paragraph defense of your opinion. Notice the urge, then let the sentence end. The fourth is the reaction audit. At the end of the day, ask yourself one question. How many of my choices today were made to prevent someone else's discomfort? Do not judge the number. Just look at the data. These are not techniques for fixing the pattern. They are instruments for observing it. And observation over time is what slowly shifts the internal reference point. You do not have to force independence. You do not have to become someone who operates without regard for other people. That is simply another mask. You begin simply by noticing. Where are your choices guided by approval signals, and where are they guided by something internal? Where does the scan begin? And what is it scanning for? Where do you edit yourself before anyone has even responded? That noticing is not a practice. It is not a technique. It is just attention directed inward, toward a process that has been running outward for a long time. And attention, over time, changes what it observes. That you are not broken for having this pattern. You are not late for noticing it. You are reacting the way any mind reacts when the strategies it built for one chapter begin to reach the edges of the next one. The pattern protected you. And now, something in you is quietly asking whether protection is still the only thing you need. That question is not a crisis. It is the beginning of a different kind of clarity. The shift is quiet. It is steady. And it is already happening.